Hey everyone, this is Dr. Jeff Horowitz, and this is Hump Day Happy Hour with Dentists in the Know. This is your backstage pass to the dental industry. Now, why are we doing this? Well, I'm going to tell you. For 5 years now, my great friends in the dental industry, Dr. Chad Duplantis and Dr. Jennifer Bell,
President.
they have joined me in a quest since COVID to dedicate our Wednesday nights to bringing the dental industry together. What does that mean? During COVID, you see, we were all educators. We were out there lecturing to large groups of people and seeing each other all the time. And during COVID, that all stopped. And we decided at that point we were going to take that opportunity to say, how do we keep the dental industry talking to each other? So we invented Dentists in the Know, or DINKS. And what we did with that was we brought together the world of education in dentistry, the world of manufacturing, so the makers of dental products, some of the key players, inventors of different types of dental products, and then certainly the everyday practicing dentist. We brought them all together. We've done this weekly show where we relax after hours, I will assure you. We have a great little glass of something, and we talk real world dentistry. And recently that has evolved to now saying, let's get the patients involved here. That's what we want from this opportunity, is to let patients come into the conversation and see all of these perspectives from a really global view. So as I said, my name is Dr. Jeff Horowitz. To my left is Dr. Chad Duplantis, and below both of us is Dr. Jennifer Bell. We are all practicing dentists. We are all educators, and we all own our own practices. And we are so happy to have this, our first week, where we are inviting the public to join in on our conversation. So guys, how was your week? And I'm pretty excited about this.
JB, ladies first.
She's talking, but we don't hear her.
Did anyone see the pink moon?
No.
Mm-mm. Me neither, but apparently there was one, which explains why last week was just a little bit kooky. I don't know if you all ever get that feeling, just in general. You're going to the grocery store, doing life, and you're like, something is just off. And then you look at the calendar and it's a full moon or a pink moon or the wolf moon we had a couple months ago, like all these weird moon things. So there was a pink moon hidden under the clouds that I never saw.
I never saw it either. Chad, was there a pink moon in Texas too?
Well, I'm assuming that the moon speaks a universal language.
Does it?
So I'm just going to have to take JB's word for it, but I am going to say that I did not see the pink moon. However, I will believe everything that she says, and I'm gonna roll with it.
Okay, so fine. Can we talk about the Masters? Can we talk about the Masters?
Yes.
Can we?
Absolutely. I know this is a dental show, but we got to get what's on our chest.
How I was hooked all weekend.
Yeah.
All weekend.
Yeah. And
it was the comeback. I mean,
what kind of courage does that take? I'm like, when he missed that putt, when Rory McIlroy missed that putt, I'm like, he's done. He's done. Well, first of all, how do you go out on the first hole and give up 2 strokes on the first hole of play in the final round of the Masters and not like lose it right there?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. On 10, on the final day, I said, this is over.
Yeah.
This is done. I mean, he's 4 up. DeChambeau just cranked one in the water. I'm like, yeah, this is over. This is done. I mean, and then it just went so back and forth. But my favorite moment of the Masters is that, and this is not because of, I mean, I thought it was great that Rory won. Don't get me wrong. But my favorite moment was we were watching it, and this guy misses this like 60-foot putt and it's like 2 feet to the left of the hole. And my wife, who knows nothing about golf, goes, "Ooh, that was horrible." I go, "You know what, honey? I'd be perfectly happy with that one right there. I would be real happy if I got it
You
that
will
close
never
from
be
that
my
distance,
caddy.
because that could very possibly be a 4-putt for me." You know?
If you're lucky. All right.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this back to dentistry, and I just want to throw a little trend out that came to mind. I'm curious if you guys are experiencing this or not. But I have noticed a trend where we have a lot of patients that move to our area. I'm in the Myrtle Beach area, for those who don't know. Jennifer is in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, and Chad is in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. So we have a lot of retirees that move to our area, a lot of new people moving into the county here. And I have just noticed in the last couple of years this trend where people cannot name their dentist. They cannot name their current dentist. In other words, I'll say, "Who is your last dentist?" "Oh, it was blank blank dentistry. It was Faro Park," or I'm just making up names now. It was Ocean
Main Street.
Bay.
Yeah,
It was
whatever.
just, and I would see whoever was there that day for my cleanings. It just, having practiced for me since the early 90s, people always knew all of their healthcare providers. And I'm just seeing this trend now where more people come in not actually knowing the name of their dental provider and saying, "I just go to this dental office and who I see is who I see," or "the last person I saw was." So I'm really curious to get feedback from the public, but I'm curious for your opinions as well.
I see that a lot, but quite honestly, I mean, I've seen people come in who have had major medical procedures and can't remember who their treating doctor is, but the majority of them have several doctors, so it goes on both ways. But one of the things that I'd like to say to our viewers, when the consumers see this, is that one thing that I have found, and I'm going to give credit to our profession, is that if someone is seeking answers from us, we're very quick to respond. Whereas sometimes it's harder to get a hold of your physicians than you could ever imagine. And that's not every single one of them, but give us a little grace when we have to get a hold of your physicians. So I will say that, whether you know their name or not.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this, because I think this ties into what you're saying, Jeff. In addition, you will also hear the comment, because I know the type of doctors that you two are. Gosh, no one's ever told me that before. Why didn't the guy or girls who I can't even remember their name, why didn't they tell me about XYZ? And I've, kind of danced around that for many years, because, we love our colleagues. We never want to speak ill of anybody. Generally speaking, we're a small profession. So we're going to take care of one another. And frankly, 9 times out of 10, you see a case and you think, could I have really done it any differently? Would I have done, I think we're humble as a profession enough to realize that. But I've just started to say, unfortunately, we're just not all trained the same, good, bad, or indifferent. And you can go from dental school, but then it's what you do for the next 30 years that sort of really defines you as a doctor in your community. It's your continuing education. It's teaching other doctors. It's diving into the technology. It's growing and advancing in your career. And it's not just operating on base level knowledge that you got in dental school as a safe beginner, and then just small incremental growth from there. And I can't stress that enough for patients in general who are looking for doctors that they want to build a relationship with. You can't put all doctors in the same bucket, because they are not the same. They are not trained the same from the get-go, but then how they specialize and how they grow in their profession, it's really important to look for those doctors that have really applied their time to grow. And can I be really honest? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars out of their own pocket. Those doctors are investing in their own profession just because they want to sit down with the patient and try to have an answer for them. Really.
Absolutely.
It's not like it doesn't come with a pay raise. It doesn't come with a bigger fee schedule with the insurance company. It's simply because they want to be really good at their job. And they want, when you sit down in that chair, to get the absolute best care you can. So it's a shame, Jeff, that patients, when you say patients don't know the names of their doctors, they've commoditized the profession. They've basically said, a Walmart's a Walmart's a Walmart. I can buy my watering hose anywhere. It doesn't matter.
That's the trend that I'm alluding to, for sure. And this is a great lead-in, because our conversation tonight is, we've talked about this, and we really all want the conversation to move to a better understanding about dental insurance and how that works. So this is the perfect lead-in. And it's, I understand why patients would rather see a practitioner who accepts their insurance. It's basic economics. You have a family of 4, and even if it's a reasonable copay for a dentist who might be out of their network, when you have a family of 4 or 5 or 6, and that adds up along the way, it's certainly understandable. But you also know that, when people have major medical conditions, that question is not necessarily the first question they ask. It's, I need open heart surgery, and who's the best? Who is someone that excels at what they do? And my fear is that, yes, I understand we're not working on hearts, but what we do has such a great impact on people, and the difference in the training that you talked about and the education levels of different dentists really does make a difference for something that people need to eat, smile, chew, speak on a daily basis. And we've all seen people who are who really have dental disabilities, things that have affected them throughout life, whether it's that they feel like they can't smile, they can't chew, they have chronic pain. We've seen dentally disabled patients, and I wonder, it's just hard for me to really see that commoditization of our profession. And so I really want to hear from the public and say, well, why is it that we will only choose a dentist that's in network, especially if it's major work, and knowing that a lot of the in-network dentists are probably not going to be the people with more experience or more education. That's not an absolute, but there's a very high likelihood that that's going to be the case. And so why is there, is it our inability to really get these points across to the public, or are we not doing a good job of explaining what we do? That's what I'm wanting to get a better understanding of.
So is the monologue over?
All right. Are we going to start making fun of each other now? I didn't know we were at that point yet, but okay.
By the way, we're all really, really good friends, and we will
game on.
we will give each other a bunch of grief throughout the night. But one of the things that I think that that we need to clarify is that dental and medical insurance are 2 entirely different animals, and I think that's very important for the consumer to understand. They're entirely different animals. From a payout perspective, but they're also entirely different from a pay-in perspective. We know that medical insurance is a lot more costly to our patients than dental insurance is, and there's a lot of, you kind of get what you pay for, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, the gist of this evening is that we we collectively kind of put together some questions that we commonly get in our practices that we'll go over. We'll break some of those questions down this evening as time permits, and we may have to have a second episode on dental insurance, but we want to break down some questions that we get from prospective or current patients. And so we're going to do that in just a few minutes. But the way that this show always goes is we have a little bit of banter. We have a little bit of side chat, if you will, just so that we can vent from the week and maybe share some of the things that are going on with us in our practices with you. But after that, we have a very special segment that's called the news. And it's some news that you could use. So why don't we break for a minute, switch it over to Dr. Jennifer Bell and let her do her news segment, and then we'll come back and we'll go through some of those questions. How does that sound?
Sounds great to me. Yeah, it sounds great to me. I'm a big fan.
Hey, and before we go to the news, could we just have a little conversation, a little side conversation without Jeff?
Yeah, totally.
Do we really need him?
No, it's with HR now. We just have to let it ride out.
Okay. All right.
The
As soon as
complaints have been
HR
filed.
answers, just let me know.
Yeah, the complaints have been filed. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited about tonight. There's some really interesting stories. I'm going to save one for last because I know Jeff is just going to be chomping at the bit to jump in on that particular one. So we'll catalog that one for the end. A couple of interesting stories that have popped up this week. Number one, the OMB, which is the White House Office of Management and Budget, has released the request to get ideas for deregulation across the country. So according to this,
before you finish, can we just have a conversation without Chad?
Of course.
Okay.
It's with HR. And by the way, I'm HR.
All right,
so you both are up for review. I'm going to start this over. Okay, super interesting story. The White House Office of Management and Budget released a request for ideas for deregulation across the country. So this applies to everyone, not just within the dental space, but all American citizens. Commenters should identify rules to be rescinded and provide detailed reasons for their rescission. OMB invited the public to send their proposals. We'll post the link. There's a full RFI to bring in your ideas. So if you work in any industry and there happens to be a regulation or a policy that is above the business, it's coming from the federal government that you just do not like, small business owners, this is speaking your language. If there are things that really have got you all torn up, especially now that we're on April 16th, post-tax day, as a small business participant, I can tell you it was a painful day. I think many small businesses also shared in that agony. Then this is your opportunity to at least express to the federal government your displeasure about certain regulations so that maybe you've got a fighting chance for once to rescind and remove some of those regulations that are impacting your ability to do your job, run your business, and maybe, just maybe, make a profit. The second news story of the day, there is a coalition forming that's trying to help support helping those individuals that are in public service. So this is particularly of interest to the dental world because those dentists that choose to pursue a career in public service where they're working in public health clinics, heavily government supported and funded programming, often they are reimbursed or paid at a lower rate for those particular programs. They aren't usually of a normal earning rate for that particular job, but they do it because it's a part of their desire to want to give back to the communities in which they serve. And we're continuing to push for help within the loan forgiveness program because they often have these large student loan debts, very similar to those individuals that took out debts that are now working in the private sector, and yet their earning potential is different. So there's a coalition forming to continue to push forward with public service loan forgiveness. It is a national group that is working with the federal government to try to continue to protect that. But there also are state programs as well that provide loan forgiveness for individuals that pursue that. So just know they're working out there to try to continue to preserve that particular program. All right, the third story of the evening, which I think will get my sweet dear friend Jeff all excited, but honestly, just a little late to the party with this story. The Journal of American Dental Association has published an article this month highlighting that mandibular advancement appliances may be used effectively to reduce symptoms of obstructive sleep apnea. Now, just a little backstory. Dentists have been working pretty actively in the sleep world for quite some time. In fact, really taking it on as a labor of love, I would say, to educate patients, identify patients who have sleep apnea risk factors, and talking to them about potential treatment options. Sometimes that includes an oral device in your practice, but many times it just is an opportunity to refer them back to their primary care physician, to pursue sleep studies, potentially CPAPs and other types of therapy, surgery, et cetera. So it certainly there is an opportunity for treatment, but it quite often, at least in my practice, really just is an opportunity to have an oral health discussion, identify those risk factors, and then help the patient return back to their primary care physician for an in-depth conversation about their particular condition. Well, at least JADA, the Journal of American Dental Association, is highlighting the benefit of the oral device in the treatment modality of sleep apnea. This has been an area of ongoing research for over a decade, looking at these particular advancement devices and their role in sleep apnea treatment. We know that compliance is significantly higher with the mandibular advancement device than it is with the CPAP. So it had essentially kind of won over the population for that reason alone. But in actuality, the data also supports that it can effectively treat patients and that their symptoms are much better as compared to no treatment at all and on par with CPAP. Most patients are pursuing treatment initially because of snoring complaints by their partners. So that's probably the number one reason why they will show up in a dental office to even have that discussion. But many dentists now are pre-screening for those patients, looking for signs of oral conditions that might suggest a sleep apneic condition or a sleep-related breathing disorder so that they can have that discussion. And then many are providing oral devices at the request of the physician to be able to treat these patients. We can see now over a decade worth of research that this has a very important role to play in the treatment of sleep apnea. And we look forward to a continued collaborative effort with our physician counterparts and our patients to provide this as a treatment modality. I'm glad to see this article in JADA. Really glad to see it. We've been seeing articles similar to this in many other journal publications for over a decade now. Really happy to see it in JADA. And with that, that's the news.
All right,
Well,
JB, you
damn.
know I'm going to chime in on this. So
I know you have to.
But in honestly, I'd like to come back and do another episode regarding only this. Our topic tonight is insurance, but for everyone out there, mandibular advancement appliances have actually been around and have been approved for the treatment of sleep apnea for over 20 years. And I had a patient just today who said, why am I only hearing about this from my physician now? And it's because look at us in dentistry. We know that this has been around for 20 years, and we're just starting to see the articles come out now in the mainstream publications.
Right.
And it's because we want to have all these studies to be able to hang our hat on for the public to know that it actually works. And it does. So I'm glad to see it's there. Of course, it's really, really late. But for anyone out there who's listening, apnea is not something to mess around with. Snoring is a sign of apnea. Please get it checked out. And your dentist is a great first place to go and get advice on where to go, because dentists are now, for the most part, screening. We see all the structures of the airway when we look in the back of your throat for your oral cancer screening. So great message. I love it. But I want to get on to insurance.
Oh, do you now?
I do. I do. That's what we advertise. I think we ought to cover
That's
that.
right.
at
We
some
got
point.
to live up to the advertisement.
Well, I think that's a great idea. So, as I said, we took a, kind of a survey of what we see in our office that patients call in with, kind of what we see online that patients are asking with. Let me tell you something, your local community Facebook groups are great resources because there are a lot of people that know everything about everything in those groups, and there are a
That
lot
is
of
so
questions that
true.
pop up.
Between
Yeah,
garden
yeah,
gnomes and
yeah.
dental insurance, like their
Yeah, I
wealth of
mean, and
knowledge.
honestly, I think one of our weeks that we're consumer facing that we actually dissect one of the most interesting Facebook posts in our neighborhood group regarding dentists, root canals, and the community, which was really a very, very good one, and kind of disheartening to read some of the comments. But anyhow, I think that we have some questions that have come up, and I kind of want to start here, and so I'm going to play moderator, and I'm going to throw a question out, and then we'll have various answers that come about. But the one question is, and Jeff briefly alluded to it, and so I guess we're going to go to it first, is my current dentist in network? And so, let's talk a little bit about that, and let's talk a little bit about what being in network means.
I can speak to that because I think I'm the only one who is in network on the podcast. Well, you might be now, I guess, Jeff, with some of your medical stuff. But when a doctor decides to become an in-network doctor, they are signing a contract agreeing to a lower reimbursement rate for all of their procedures in exchange for to be listed and to be a part of that network. It's a marketing exchange. It's essentially saying, instead of paying marketing dollars to the community to try to draw patients in, I'm going to sign a contract which should provide me a more immediate source of patients who will seek my practice because I'm a network, and I will agree to that reduced fee so that I can continue to pay my bills. It's definitely a strategy that many young doctors will deploy because they need to put food on the table. They have big dental student loans to pay. And so, it's a way to drum up business in your practice very quickly. The biggest negative as a doctor who's in network is that fee schedule very rarely moves. And when it does move, it's a much smaller increment than what inflationary normal percentages would be. So, for instance, if we go back to COVID 2020, and I've been in network since 2010, maybe before that, but 2010 with our current practice, the incremental fee increases that we've seen over that time has probably been in the ballpark of 5 to 6% total since 2010. And since 2020, about 1.5%. I think we can all at least appreciate eggs are up 150%. Consumable goods are up 25 to 30%. Just in general, the cost of doing business, the cost of living in the United States has gone up pretty substantially. And so most doctors are not seeing that rate of increase on the reimbursement side that's consistent. It's not correlated with cost. It's decided based on other data points from the insurance company, regardless of what it now costs to run the business. And so staffing costs have gone up as well as supply costs. So you are starting to see, and the data is supporting more, actually 25% of dentists over the last year over year have left networks. And the reason is because there's becoming a bigger gap between the reimbursement rate of what it is to do a procedure versus what it actually costs a dentist to perform the procedure. So that's what it means to be a network. You agree to a lot of other things inside of that contract that have challenging effects both to your relationship with the patient as well as to the type of care that you can provide. But that's often a choice just to continue to be a marketable practice in your community.
So, Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off for just a second because I have an interesting statistic to share based upon Jennifer's comment, and that was timely. So I'm going to let you speak in just a second. But if we go back and I do a presentation on this, I have some actual statistics which are very interesting over the past 55 years. Okay. In 1970, and we're going to talk about this in just a second. We're going to pivot just a little bit and talk about maximums. In 1970, the average dental maximum was roughly between 1,000 and 1,500, varying on the policy. Okay, that's your maximum amount allowed to use per year, which we'll break down in just a second. In 2025, the average maximums for dental insurance is about $1,000 or $1,500. Okay, so that has not changed. Now let's go back to 1970. The average cost of a crown. Now it was probably gold back then. Sorry, Tom. I know you're watching, but I'm just going to throw it out there. But it was probably
Even
gold.
he'll laugh at this fee.
Yeah.
Even he will laugh at this fee.
The
It won't cover his
average
lab
cost
fee.
of a crown, which the most widely used crown back then was a solid metal. I won't just say gold, but gold was a part of it. Was $100 roughly.
Wouldn't pay his lab bill.
In 2025, the average cost of a crown is above $1,460. So if we break that down, that is a 1,360% increase in fee versus a 0% increase in maximum annual reimbursement. Now, dental inflation has also been beneath, I would say, I have that statistic as well, but dental inflation has been maybe a little bit higher than annual inflation over the past several years. However, that's not the case over the past 2 to 3 years where we kept hearing inflation, inflation, inflation. However, what's not happening is the annual maximums are not increasing. And I believe that that's due to a joint effort to not increase the consumer's premium per month that they pay into insurance in accordance with inflation. So there's some really interesting statistics that are out there, and that information is not mine. That was pulled from literature. So I think that this is really valid information that people need to understand. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff so he can get his comment out there. But I think we do need to talk annual maximums as well.
No, I think all those comments were great and well timed, Chad. The thing that I would add is some perspective as well, because I think a lot of patients see dentists not wanting to participate in network as some form of greed. I mean, and we've all read the blogs, we've all read the Facebook groups that say, oh, they're just out for the big bucks because they won't participate, so I'm not going there. But I think that this is very helpful perspective for all the patients that are listening, because I don't think that they quite honestly realize the economics of running a dental business, a dental practice, which is still a business. I mean, at the end of the day, we still have to provide for our families like everyone else that's working out there. And what most people don't know is that really 75 cents of every dollar, for the most part, and it used to be 70 cents of every dollar. Since COVID, that has crept up to 75 cents of every dollar that comes into a dental office goes out for things like payroll and lab fees and materials and equipment and maintenance and all of those overhead costs. I think people look at our fees and they say, well, they just make these crazy, extraordinary fees and they make them up out of nowhere so that they can become rich. No, it's we have to have some amount between what we pay out in overhead to our employees and all of the expenses that I mentioned, there's got to be some margin in there to bring something home for the dentist to pay back the $400,000 in debt that many dentists come out of school with, and all of the extra educational expenses to become a great clinician. So when you start adding that in, and then you say, okay, well, if I get a network, I have to reduce my fees sometimes in the line of 25 to 30%. Well, guess what? If you are already at an overhead of 75% and you take another 25% off of your fees, that leaves 0% to bring home at the end of the day. And nobody wants to work for nothing. I mean, we all love what we do. We're all there for the public. But I think that that's really important perspective. So going back to Chad's point about maximums have really not increased, but all of our expenses have increased, which is what has mandated the fee increases. It's not that we just want to go up. And even yet, we have managed to keep our fee increases below what most other industries have implemented. So it's really a conscious decision what Jennifer is doing. And I take my hat off to her, because it's forgive me for saying this, Jennifer, and you may disagree, but I think you're a rare bird. Someone with Jennifer's education level, the amount of money that she has spent on continuing education and absolutely mastering her craft. Most people are not going to invest that kind of money and then say, I'm going to decrease my fees by 25 to 30%. Jennifer happens to be a very astute business person that has figured out systems that allow her to be able to do that. But the average dentist doesn't go through business school and really has a hard time making those numbers work. Is that fair, Jennifer?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's getting harder, I think, which is why you're seeing that 25% of our colleagues are forced to leave networks, because at some point, the math, frankly, doesn't make sense anymore. And you can't work for free. And you can't be losing money on every business encounter. If you were running an automotive business and every repair that you did, you lost money on, at some point that runs out. There's no sustainability to that business model anymore. And what we're doing is not totally dissimilar from other service industries, other than the fact that we have a healthcare focus on that. That you can only work for a certain percentage at some point. It doesn't add up. Now, we can have a very extended conversation on the fact that most of the things that are embedded in the cost of running a dental practice are completely artificially inflated and need to be resolved, because they are unsustainable and untenable for both the dentist who's trying to run a small business and for the patients to be able to consume the care. There's a major gap between those two numbers. So I am 100% actually for reform of the whole model, because I think it's long overdue. What we built in the 80s doesn't work anymore. And, I've had this discussion in our practice. Even what I built in 2010, which was an in-network practice where it was like 80 to 85% of in-network patients, about 15% of fee-for-service patients, which simply means that those patients were not an insured patient, so they were paying our fee schedule when they came to seek care. Even that business model in 2010 doesn't work anymore. We were in a fortunate situation for the first 10 years of our practice. COVID fundamentally changed the way medicine in general is working and what it costs to do it. And so I actually genuinely feel sorry for patients. As a patient myself who's consuming medical care as well, I feel sorry for our American population who is seeking healthcare now It's hard to get in. It's hard to actually see a doctor. It's hard to get continuity of care, to get everybody talking at the same time. Chad, Jeff, you both are living this world pretty actively right now. Quick to prescribe, quick to write meds to solve quick acute problems without looking at root cause and etiology. And, you know, I think we're up against a wall pretty soon where more people are going to get poor care, poor outcomes, die, I guess, unnecessarily, simply because the disjointedness of the way we're operating. And I speak that as a patient, not as a dentist, but just as a consumer of healthcare as well. Like, there's just a big problem, honestly. And patients are saying it too. Do you have, and maybe those who are watching experience this, it's almost refreshing when patients come into our office and they say, wow, I mean, you probably need to go. You need to go, right? You probably have other patients to see. And I'm like, no, I'm here with you right now. I want to hear what you have to say. I need to understand what's going on so I know how to support you and help you. And they're almost caught off guard because it's become so accustomed now that patients don't get that type of a time and attention with their medical providers. Are you noticing that?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I'd like to chime in to the point that we made earlier. You said it too, JB, that we're all consumers as well. I'll share a quick story. I won't make it long, but, you know, my wife and I have a daughter that struggles with a chronic illness, and we finally found a team of doctors that really have zoned in on her care. And we just got notification 2 weeks ago that the UT Southwestern system is no longer contracted with our insurance company. And we have very good insurance, probably the most prolific or most popular insurance company in the state of Texas. And then, you know, we kind of went into panic mode because I am a consumer too. But one of the things that we need to differentiate is that I don't have an annual maximum with my medical insurance company. And I had a great list of providers, and quite honestly, with the cost of medicine versus the cost of dentistry, especially with a chronic illness, it's not something that you want to be shopping around for somebody that's out of your network, because the game is completely different than it is in dentistry. So we kind of went through a panic mode, and, you know, fortunately we had a resolve that, lo and behold, they did want to contract with probably the largest insurance provider in the state of Texas, and we're going to make it all work out. But my point is that we, even as dentists, we get it. We get it. But the thing is that we've also got to understand, as I've said before, and I'll say it numerous times, medical insurance and dental insurance are two entirely different animals. And, you know, JB hit the nail right on the head that it's not cost effective or effective towards, I hate to use the word lifestyle, but towards living for many of us to contract with a lot of these insurance companies. It's very inhibitive upon the dentist to do so. And there are certain companies that make it more worthwhile, but there are a lot that it's just cost prohibitive for us to pursue those contracts.
Yeah. And to both of your points, I think there's a conscious decision that we all have to make as clinicians. And again, Chad, I couldn't agree more about how different medical and dental insurance are. But what we're facing is similar to what happened in the medical industry, where medical practitioners felt pressure to get a network with a lot of companies, and then the reimbursements didn't go up along with their costs of providing the services. So in turn, what did they have to do in order to be profitable? They had to see more patients. So what does that do? That actually makes the amount of time that you get with a clinician much less profound. You don't have the time to answer the questions like JB was talking about. And so a lot of us make that conscious decision to not feel like we're stuck having to see more patients than we can actually give proper attention to, because that there's contrary to what a lot of people believe, most dentists, I mean,
Like
and
this.
the three of us have been educators for a long time. We've met dentists from every part of the world, and I will say most dentists are really nice people that want to do the right thing. Most, I mean, really, most of them out there are just really benevolent, kind people who are humanitarians that just want to do the right thing and make a decent living while they're doing it. And when it gets to a point where you have to see more patients that than you're comfortable with, when you feel like you have to speed up or not give someone the amount of attention that they deserve, that's something that's really hard on most of us, and unfortunately it's hard to make that decision. And that's one of the things that being out of network is helpful for, is being able for a dentist to say, okay, here's what I have to charge to to make a decent living, but also provide my patients with the best care and the best service. And so I guess it's just something that we want the public to know, that this is not something that is vested by greed, but really by conscious decision of what kind of dentistry does someone want to provide. Likewise, there are people who who love to, I say, churn and burn, that they just love to be mechanical, do the dentistry, get it knocked out. And that may be a good answer for some people, and they like to see that many patients in a day. For me, it's about relationships and answering questions, like you said. So I'll get off my soapbox and let you guys talk.
All right. So I think, Chad, would you like to moderate for our next question?
Yeah. So, let's talk. There's a lot of questions, and we certainly don't want to keep everybody all night, but let's just throw out a blanket question as to what does dental insurance typically cover?
I'm happy to answer. So, I mean, it usually covers your preventative services and some amount of them. So that is exams, routine, non-diseased cleanings, radiographs at some frequency, usually once a year, although I'm starting to now see preventative deductibles applied to radiography, and also just copays applied to radiographs at any interval. It will typically include, for dependents, fluoride services and sealants. For adult care, it does not cover those benefits. And then that's all in the very basic and preventative category. Most insurance companies have some coverage within that. And in fact, some only have preventative coverage. And that does eat into what Chad talked about with the annual maximum. Whatever those fees are that you utilize for preventative care will eat into that maximum allowable for the year, whether it be $1,000, $1,500, etc. And then there's major services, which are crowns. Excuse me, let me back up. Basic services beyond that would be typically root canals, fillings, and oral surgery, simple oral surgery like extractions. They typically fall in that basic category and allow for basically emergent treatment that needs to be resolved. And then major services would be anything that's beyond that, such as crowns, bridges, implants, dentures that are, you could argue, are not in the emergent category, meaning it's an emergency, pain, swelling would be associated with that. So they fall into a different category. All of those different procedures and different costs are all applied to your maximum that eat into that bucket throughout the year. The last piece of that would be things like orthodontics, which are typically their own separate benefit package. For dependents, a good number of them will have some type of orthodontic coverage up to 19, sometimes 26, but there's a really nasty caveat in that, which we'll talk about. And then some plans, the nicer plans will offer adult coverage for orthodontics, a lot of nuances within that as well. Sometimes they pay the provider all up front. Sometimes they pay them incrementally over quarters. Sometimes they pay them on a biannual basis. Sometimes they pay them once a year. So you have to have that insurance coverage in place for multiple years to ensure you get your maximum benefit out of that adult orthodontic coverage plan. So it's really convoluted. If I can just say, I have a full-time company that does this for me on a daily basis of verifying your benefit to understand when you walk into the office exactly what is covered and to what extent, so that we can very intentionally provide you what we think your out-of-pocket will be. So I think I can't stress that enough, that a lot of doctors are spending a tremendous amount of money to give you a good faith estimate on what they think things are going to cost. But unfortunately, as the middleman between the insurance company and the patient, we're often left with the bag to tell patients when bad things happen, such as insurance companies change their mind, or they don't honor, a pre-request for services, or they put your particular procedure in a different bucket and your out-of-pocket is different. So we spend a lot of money to try to get that right, but we certainly don't control benefit. And so then we're sort of left giving the bad news to the patient in the meantime.
So great points. And Jeff, I'm going to turn this on you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to come back with your most appropriate answer. So, Dr. Horowitz, I was looking at my insurance policy, and it says that they cover 100% of cleanings and x-rays. And, I was just wondering why they only paid $23 out of a $167 procedure. If they say they pay 100%, shouldn't that be 100%?
Well, no, again, it goes back to the same thing. Just because that is what a particular insurance company has deemed as their allowable does not mean that that is what is usual and customary for a given area. So I'll throw an example out. The state dental plan in South Carolina, for example, was actually reimbursing for the longest time. They used a private payer, and they had two plans. They had the basic plan, which was fully covered for any state employee by the employer. So if you were employed by the state, you automatically got this coverage. And the allowables were actually below Medicaid levels. They were just such grossly reduced fees, but they sold it to the employees as, the coverage that we are providing for you covers, 2 cleanings a year and X amount for a maximum of $1,000 a year, just like you had mentioned earlier. Those allowables, as I said, were so crazy that nobody could accept them. No one accepted those in our entire county. And patients became frustrated, and we had to turn it back on the state and say, listen, this is an employer issue. You either need to get them to find another plan that actually follows what is usual and customary in a given area, or they need to have another tier of coverage. And, what you guys work out between you as far as coverage, maybe they pay X amount towards the higher tier, but there's got to be a plan that at least addresses what is usual and customary for a given area. And that's the problem, right? Is that every insurance company has their own definition of what they will deem as an acceptable fee or as their allowable fee.
I think that usual and customary are a couple of words that we all need to know because it does vary from insurance company to insurance company. Um, in your area, it was the county or the state, Jeff?
Actually, both. They
Both.
were all on the same plan. All county and state employees had the same payer, and it was the most miserable plan. And it wasn't until there was enough backlash from the patients having to go back to the employers to say, hey, this is not really a dental plan. Every person out there has to, charge a significant surcharge. So you either need to, up the allowance or up what you're paying for our coverage, or offer us the ability to buy a more normal plan that pays to usual and customary fees.
It seems like we're always commenting on that, but my goodness, you'll see some plans where, something that's $175, which, we try and keep our fees in line with a lot of the area. So we're not the most expensive. We're not the least expensive, but we try and stay in line. We try and monitor what's going on. But the thing is that the usual and customary fees can vary. They can be basically 5 to 10% of what our fees are. They can be higher, and it really just depends, and it varies from insurance company to insurance company. It also varies upon who you work for. So somebody commented a minute ago, and it's our really good friend Tom, and he said that it always takes an angry mob of us to pressure the change, and I think that it's very clear that all of us are in agreement that there needs to be reform of some sort out there. We don't know what that looks like, and we'll all continue to fight for each and every one of our patients, but I don't want to keep anybody longer than we need to tonight. We've almost gone an hour, and I think we could have probably gone 2 or 3. But let's break this up into segments. So as we close tonight, I'm just going to ask each and every one of you, are there any final comments before I close out the show?
JB?
I will do one additional vocabulary lesson because we've learned a lot tonight. But a missing tooth clause, which I think we're all familiar with, right? Such a silly and stupid rule, but I think it warrants a little bit more highlight. The missing tooth clause. If you come into my practice with a new insurance company and you are missing a tooth, many insurance companies have a caveat in their plan. They will not pay for you to replace that tooth. So what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, if you can keep continuity of your insurance company, that would help prevent that from kicking in. But when you're looking at different plans and you're looking at ones that your employer is offering, and whether you choose the low premium, high premium, or if you're shopping it on the open market, things like missing tooth clause, adult orthodontic coverage, basic preventative and major coverages. These are all really important terms that will dictate whether or not you can actually pursue the type of care that you want. So make sure you understand those vocabulary words very well. Talk to your insurance provider or your HR representative or whoever you're purchasing the plan from to make sure you understand those terms well, because you may purchase a plan with a great intent that you're now going to go and rehabilitate the thing that you wanted to rehabilitate. And yet the plan may be deficient in providing you coverage for that particular need.
Great point. The thing I'd throw out there is, we hear this all the time. A patient will come in, they either don't have insurance or, are in a place where their insurance doesn't pay much. And they'll say, well, that's a lot. I want to go out and buy dental insurance. I'm gonna go out and shop dental insurance policies. And what I will tell all of you out there is that for the most part, private insurance policies almost never pay. They don't financially make sense. What you end up putting in to the premium payments really, along with what your copays end up being and a low maximum allowable, you will almost never make back what you put into the plan. You're really better off to work something out financially directly with the dentist. The other side of that is that most insurance companies will have a 1-year wait for any major dental work. So they know that people who are told they need a lot of work are going to run out and get an insurance policy. And so the way that they counter that is by saying there is a 1-year waiting period on major work, which would be things like crown and bridge and root canals and implants, if that's offered as a service. So, what I would say is most front offices in dental practices, most of them are familiar with a lot of plans, and they can actually help you. We will actually sit down with the patient and financially work out what they will pay in to what they will get back out of private insurance, just to show them really you're better off to work something out with us than to say, I'm going to put off this work for a year, which typically makes dentistry more expensive. So that's my parting point.
Yeah, and I'll just close with this. We all need to be careful what we wish for, because with increased coverage comes increased premiums. And so there's got to be a delicate balance between the two of them. Because in the end, I think that all of the insurance companies are in this business to make a profit, or they wouldn't be a business in the end. So,
and they wouldn't have very big buildings in every
Yeah.
city in the country.
Yeah,
Did I say that, or did I think it?
There's a very delicate balance, so we need to be careful what we wish for. But as we close tonight, I mean, I think it's been a wonderful episode. I think we've had a lot of really good banter, and ultimately, we hope that we helped each and every one of you maybe understand a little bit more about dental insurance. I think throughout this conversation, we've come up with some future topics that are very pertinent and will be important to us, such as sleep definitely being one of them. That's a very important and pertinent topic to talk about. I think the missing tooth or the missing limb clause is a very
missing limb. If you come in missing an arm, you can't get a new arm.
We are not giving
you up here without an arm, you're leaving without an arm. I mean, I'm sorry, we don't cover it. We don't cover it. Anyhow, there's a lot more that we can get to. And
what if you come in missing cancer, but then you get cancer?
Yeah.
Is there a missing cancer clause?
There's a missing cancer clause. Yeah. Hey, there's a lot of clauses that we're going to come up with, but anyhow, no.
Okay. Just asking.
This wasn't meant to disparage any insurance companies, disparage any of our patients. We just wanted to provide a little bit of education to you as to who dentists are, what we do, and really our job is to promote our profession and provide a link between you and your dental care provider. And we do a lot more than fix teeth, folks. We're here for you. We're here to help you, and we're here to help you understand. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And we look forward to more episodes of this in the future with various topics. So we hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.